The city lights of Los Angeles shimmered like scattered dreams at night. Inside a rooftop party filled with laughter and champagne, Tom Fletcher stood quietly near the bar, calm, observant, unnoticed. For 12 years, he'd worked as a senior talent coordinator, a man who connected stars with their big breaks but never sought one himself. That's where he met Natalie, a 29-year-old actress with ambition burning in her eyes. She spoke with passion, every word soaked in belief that she was destined for more. Tom was drawn in by her energy, and soon they became inseparable. She filled his quiet life with excitement. He brought stability and quiet support to hers. What Natalie didn't know was that behind every opportunity she celebrated, every audition, every callback, Tom had quietly opened the door first. A phone call here, a favor there, never to cheat the system, only to make sure her name wasn't lost among thousands. She thought it was all her doing. Tom never corrected her. Her happiness was enough, but success changed her. With every small win, her pride grew louder. One night at dinner with her friends, she laughed about their struggles, bragging about her rising career. Then, without hesitation, she turned to Tom. Poor Tom's been in this industry forever, and he's still just a coordinator. No ambition, but that's fine. Not everyone can be a star. The table fell silent. Tom's chest tightened, but his voice stayed calm. "You're right," he said. She smiled, missing the weight in his tone. That night, Tom made a quiet decision. If helping her meant being looked down on, if his support only made her forget who lifted her, then it was time to stop. The first week after that dinner felt normal. Natalie had 2 auditions already lined up, both from doors Tom had opened weeks earlier. She came home glowing, full of excitement. "See, babe, when I'm in my flow, everything just works out," she said. Tom smiled softly. "Yeah, maybe it does." But when those prearranged calls ran out, the silence began. Natalie submitted for 5 new roles the next week. Tom didn't make a single call this time. He simply watched. Days passed, no responses, no callbacks. She checked her phone every hour, refreshed her email like it held her future. "It's just a slow week," she said, forcing a laugh. By week 3, her confidence began to crack. "I don't get it. My agent says she's submitting me for everything. Why isn't anyone calling back?" she muttered over breakfast, frustration creeping into her voice. Tom took a sip of coffee. "I'm just a coordinator, remember? The cleaning lady probably knows more people than me." She didn't even catch the reference, too busy scrolling through casting sites that suddenly seemed to have forgotten her name. Her recurring role wrapped its season, but the next call never came. When she finally reached out to the casting director, they told her, "We're going in a different direction." The irony stung. She had no idea that direction existed only because Tom had once quietly guided it. When her agent finally dropped her, Natalie's voice trembled with disbelief. She said, "I'm not booking enough after everything I've done." Tom looked at her, really looked. "What have you done, Nat?" For the first time, she had no answer. The weeks that followed felt heavier, the kind of silence that lingered even when the city buzzed outside. Los Angeles had once felt like magic to Natalie, every corner holding promise. Now, the same streets mocked her. Billboards showed faces that used to smile beside her at auditions. Her name, once whispered with curiosity, vanished from every conversation that mattered. Natalie threw herself into overdrive. She redid her headshots, hired a social media consultant, and filled her feed with glossy photos and motivational quotes. "The grind never stops," she posted, even as her inbox stayed empty. Tom watched quietly as she spent money she didn't have, on reels, branding sessions, and career coaches who promised miracles. He didn't offer advice this time, not because he was cruel, but because she'd made it clear she didn't value his guidance. One evening, she came home from a networking mixer, mascara smudged, eyes glassy. "Do you know what a casting director told me?" she said bitterly. "He said I look familiar, but couldn't place me, like I'm some extra he saw once." Tom's heart ached, but he stayed still. The man she spoke about, Ricardo, had once given Natalie a chance only because Tom had covered his bar tab at a festival. Without Tom's quiet hand behind the curtain, Natalie was invisible again. As the weeks turned into months, desperation replaced pride. She attended every workshop, smiled at every stranger, laughed at every fake compliment, hoping one might lead somewhere. But every door stayed closed. Her savings ran dry. One morning, she looked at their bills, confusion spreading across her face. Why is the internet so expensive? Tom glanced up from his coffee. That's the fast speed you asked for, to upload your self-tapes. You've been paying for it? He nodded. Real men support their women's dreams, right? She didn't respond. For the first time, her eyes softened, not from pity, but realization. Still, pride is stubborn. She told herself it was just a bad streak, that she'd bounce back. But then Blake, the same friend she once mocked, landed a pilot. Cassandra got a recurring role. Joel booked 2 films. At their next dinner together, Natalie sat in silence while her friends toasted new beginnings. Her fork clinked against her plate, untouched. When Blake congratulated her on her next big thing, she forced a smile, her eyes hollow. Back home, she snapped, I don't understand. Blake's not even that talented. It's like everyone's getting something except me. Tom looked at her, remembering the night she called him unambitious. Maybe, he said quietly, they just work harder. The words hung in the air like a mirror she couldn't look away from. That night, Natalie stayed awake, scrolling through old emails, watching old self-tapes, replaying moments when everything felt easy. She'd built her confidence on invisible support beams, and now that they were gone, her whole world shook. In the silence, she finally began to see the truth. Success had never just been hers. It had been theirs, and she was the one who broke it. By the 4th month, Natalie's confidence had turned into quiet panic. The sparkle she once carried, that effortless charm, was gone. Her days began with anxiety and ended with silence. Emails went unanswered. Agents stopped returning calls. Even her friends had begun moving forward without her. But Natalie wasn't ready to accept defeat. She started creating her own explanations, whispering to herself late at night that maybe she'd been blacklisted, that someone was sabotaging her career. The thought comforted her. It was easier to believe the world was unfair than to admit she wasn't as special as she'd always thought. One night, wine glass in hand, she cornered Tom in the kitchen. Don't you think it's strange? She asked, her tone sharp with suspicion. Everything was fine until that dinner. Then suddenly, nothing. No calls. No callbacks. It's like someone flipped a switch. Tom didn't look up. Coincidences happen, he said softly. Maybe the universe is testing you. The universe? She scoffed, pacing. No, someone's behind this. It doesn't make sense otherwise. Tom met her gaze, his expression unreadable. Maybe it's just the industry without shortcuts. She froze for a moment, the words brushing against something inside her, but her pride rejected it. You wouldn't understand, she muttered. You've never tried to make something of yourself. He smiled faintly. You're right. I just push papers. Natalie stormed off, but the seed had been planted. Days later, she received a call from Donna, her former agent. The voice on the other end was careful, almost apologetic. I heard you've been struggling, Donna said. I wanted to reach out because, well, I feel responsible. You dropped me, Natalie snapped. I did, Donna admitted, but not because you lacked talent, because the man who used to advocate for you stopped. There was silence. What are you talking about? Tom Fletcher, Donna said. He's not just some coordinator, Natalie. He's the coordinator, one of the most connected people in this town. Every role you ever booked, every callback, every meeting, happened because Tom made sure someone saw your name. Natalie's breath hitched. That's not true. Donna sighed. The recurring role you had? The director told me himself it was a favor to Tom. You were lucky, not because of your talent, but because someone believed in you more than you ever believed in him. Her hand trembled as she ended the call. Tom was reading in the living room when she walked in, pale, shaken. Is it true? She whispered. Everything I ever got was because of you? Tom didn't answer immediately. He looked at her, really looked, and saw for the first time that she wasn't angry. She was scared. "Does it matter?" he finally asked. "You told me I was holding you back." Tears welled in her eyes. "I didn't know. I was stupid. I thought—" "You thought I was beneath you?" he interrupted softly. "You assumed my quiet meant small. That love without applause had no value." "Please," she said, voice cracking. "I didn't mean it. I was horrible. I was arrogant." Tom set his book down. "You weren't horrible. You were honest. That night at dinner, you showed me who you really were." She stepped closer. "Can't you just help me one more time?" "Please, Tom. I'll do anything." He shook his head gently. "You don't need my help. You said you wanted to make it on your own. Now you finally can." Her knees buckled as she cried. Real tears this time. Not the dramatic kind, but the kind that come when pride finally collapses. Tom stood up, walked past her, and whispered, "Now you know what this business feels like without someone clearing the path." Behind him, Natalie broke, realizing the cruelest truth of all. She hadn't been climbing alone. She'd been carried. The city was changing again. The air carried the faint chill of autumn, leaves rustling like whispers of forgotten dreams. Natalie walked through those streets, the same ones that once glimmered with promise. Billboards flashed faces she didn't recognize. Voices of newcomers filled the cafes that once hosted her after-parties. And suddenly, Los Angeles, her city of dreams, felt foreign. Everywhere she turned, reminders of her past shimmered like ghosts. She saw posters for shows she almost starred in, red carpets she once walked, and friends who had long since stopped returning her messages. For years, Natalie had lived in a spotlight that wasn't fully hers. And now, stripped of it, she could finally see how fragile her world had been, a castle built on borrowed light. Her mornings were the hardest. She'd wake up to the same quiet apartment, sunlight spilling through curtains that once had a life full of noise. No more urgent calls. No more rehearsals. No more "you're perfect for this role." Just silence, the kind that forces you to listen to yourself. At first, she tried pretending, posting old photos, revisiting old memories, chasing what had already passed. But the illusion broke each time she stepped in front of the camera. Something had changed in her, a weight, a truth, and no amount of makeup or lighting could hide it. Then came the day she auditioned for a role that felt painfully familiar, a woman past her prime, clinging to fading fame. The script cut deep, each line echoing pieces of her own life. When she finished, there was a long pause. The casting director gave a polite nod. "We'll be in touch," he said, his voice kind but final. Walking out of that room, Natalie didn't cry. She didn't feel anger or humiliation, just clarity. For so long, she had chased the next big thing, desperate for the world to see her. But somewhere along the way, she had forgotten to see herself. As she stepped into the sunlight, a group of young actors passed her, laughing, filled with the kind of hope she once carried. She smiled faintly. Maybe that was how it was meant to be, the torch passing quietly, without applause. That night, while cleaning her desk, she found an old folder filled with printed emails, notes, and casting memos. On each page, Tom's name appeared again and again. "Please consider Natalie. She'd be perfect for this. Trust me, she won't disappoint." She traced his handwriting with her fingers, tears slipping down her cheeks. It wasn't just a man helping a woman. It was love, quiet and steadfast, building her dreams piece by piece while she never noticed. She thought about the night she had told him he was just a coordinator. How small those words sounded now. How cruel. Natalie realized she had spent years searching for validation from strangers when the only person who truly saw her had been right beside her, invisible in the shadows she refused to look into. Weeks turned into months. Life moved slower, but also started to feel more real. Natalie began taking long walks to places she once overlooked. Old theaters, coffee shops, parks filled with music. For the first time, she wasn't rushing. She wasn't chasing. She was simply there. One evening, fate brought her face to face with Tom. He was standing outside a small art exhibit, holding a cup of coffee, his laugh blending into the night air. He looked different, lighter, calmer, like someone who had finally let go of years of waiting. Beside him stood another woman, soft-spoken, warm-eyed, the kind of person who didn't need a stage to shine. They were talking, easy and comfortable, like two people who had found peace in each other. Natalie stopped across the street, her heart trembling. For a moment, time blurred. Memories flooded back, late-night conversations, quiet smiles, the way he used to look at her when she wasn't watching. But this time, she didn't walk up. She didn't call his name. She just watched, a bittersweet smile curving her lips. He had given her everything, and now he had found something she never gave him in return, appreciation. She whispered under her breath, "Thank you, Tom, for loving me when I didn't deserve it." Then she turned and walked away, tears falling freely, not from regret, but from understanding. Months later, Natalie started volunteering at a small community theater for underprivileged kids. The building was old, the chairs mismatched, the lighting barely functional, but the laughter that filled it was more genuine than anything she'd heard on a set. She taught those kids how to find their voices, not how to be famous, but how to be real. She told them stories about resilience, about grace, about gratitude. She taught them to see value in effort, not applause. Sometimes, when a child would stand nervously on stage, she'd smile and whisper, "Don't worry, you've got this." And every time she said it, she'd hear Tom's voice in her memory, calm, steady, certain, echoing through her heart. Years later, at a local awards event, Natalie was invited as a mentor. She sat quietly in the audience as a young actress she'd once coached took the stage to receive her first award. Cameras flashed, people cheered, and the girl's eyes sparkled with gratitude. When she stepped down, she ran to Natalie, hugging her tightly. "I couldn't have done this without you," she said. Natalie smiled, tears in her eyes. "Then promise me one thing," she whispered. "Never forget the people who help you get there." The girl nodded. As applause filled the room, Natalie looked around, not for cameras, not for recognition, but for peace. And this time, she found it. She understood now that life wasn't about who saw you, but who stood beside you when no one else did. Tom had once carried her dreams without asking for credit. Now, she carried his lesson forward, quietly, humbly, and with a full heart. Because true love doesn't always end with happily ever after. Sometimes, it ends with understanding. And that, Natalie realized, was the greatest gift of all.